Good evening and welcome to another Bit Alive, where we're set out to have a talk about tech around a virtual water cooler. Anything that is good evening and welcome to another Bit Alive. Anything that is tech, open source is all on the topic for discussion. Sorry, I got distracted because somehow I messed something else up here, and I'm awesome at that. And I lost my place, so there we go. This is awesome. All right, we have a lot of things to talk about on the docket, but first I want to thank Rocco for starting the BDLL community, where I truly felt like a member of the nicest group of encouraging and uplifting people with phenomenal skills and a whole range of abilities. And we're going to be talking about EndeavourOS today, but first, what have you been doing in Linux this week? What exciting things have you been doing? Don't be shy.
Well, yeah, the same exciting stuff as last time.
Well, I can tell you that I've spun up many ISOs using ESNIX's ISO scripts. I've settled on one, and I've actually installed it on this Acer here, which I have 3 of these. They came from work and they didn't want them. So I've got a 2 terabyte hard drive, and I'm trying to set up a server for Plex because I've got a lot of movies.
That's awesome.
I've installed it on there, and it is Arch Linux, which is what we're basically doing with Endeavour at the moment, but this was pure Arch with ESNIX's script. So that worked out pretty well. The install went well. I'm running the Cinnamon desktop, and I've just finished, just prior to getting on here, putting all the movies on there. So now I've just got to log into Plex and select my folders and stuff. So I'm hoping that all works out well. It's a Core 2 Duo, so I think it should process movies okay on a Plex server, I think. I'm hoping.
Probably.
So we'll see how
I can't imagine that you're going to have like hundreds of users on it, so you're probably not going to have any issues. So I think
that's been interesting.
Yeah, it really depends on the number of users, like however many you plan on sharing that with. But if it's going to be, I mean, I don't even know what the limits would be for Plex. I have no idea. I don't come anywhere close to the limits on my MB server, so I can't imagine Plex is going to be any more difficult. I mean, Eric would probably know better.
1 or 2 users maybe at the most. That'll be it.
Yeah.
So
my guess it'll be smashingly well.
Yeah, it's the thing that takes the most amount of effort for streaming that stuff is if it has to try to re-encode it on the fly. So depending on the size of the screen they're using, sometimes the client will request a re-encode from the server, and depending on how you have it set up, it may or may not. So I know when I use Plex, there's an option to have it just automatically encode at several different bit rates. That way, depending on if you're watching from a small screen or watching from a television, there are different copies of that movie file itself, so that then it can be served without. And if it's just serving a file, that's a pretty low CPU. It's not very demanding.
Okay, fair enough.
If it gets a request, it's not going to re-encode the entire file first. It's going to try to do it as it goes, and then that's where you'll see that it's using a lot more CPU. And then if you get multiple people, making those types of requests at the same time, then it can theoretically bog down. But I mean, if you're just talking about a couple of people, even in that scenario, it's probably not going to overwhelm the system. So
no, fair enough. I've done some things that I haven't done before. Auto login I normally don't do. And also I've set that when you hit the power button, you can shut down. So the server's, it's pretty much going to be a server. And I'm just sort of learning a little bit about SSH, so I can log in from here and just update, because it's an Arch base. So it needs to be probably updated on a regular. So I just, I couldn't connect. I think it's because the wireless in here is not working well, but I am going to connect it via Ethernet. So that should work well. I've got to do that yet.
Can you hold up your toy to the camera once more? I just want to see it. So some fans in the back. What's there on the front?
It's just some USB ports.
Oh, okay.
And
it's an interesting design. I mean, with what I can see, it looks.
It's a little Acer Veriton.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone's ever heard of those, but yeah.
I haven't seen a desktop like that type of form factor in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all work ones, and they were going to get rid of them. I said, give them to me. I'll find a use for it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Many a home server that started life as a desktop PC in some corporate environment. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. I think that's one of the key things, like what drives my passion in Linux anyway, is how you can repurpose some old piece of trash from somebody else and it becomes an absolute treasure in your house. It really is. It's a kind of freedom that I think that a lot of nerds just don't have, I think, or even just they haven't discovered yet. And it's actually on that kind of owning your technology. And I'm really proud to say that we have Brian from the EndeavourOS project, who has brought to us how he has owned technology, how he has made the Linux world a little bit of a better place by filling a niche that was sorely needed when the Antergos project came to an end. So Brian, welcome to BDLL Live. I know you've been here before with a much better host,
Yes.
Rocco, who could press the right buttons at the right time. So thank you very much for being patient with me. But what we did is we had last week we started the challenge, and I think Eric probably contacted you first. I think is what if I remember correctly.
Yes, he did.
And but we did a straw poll. Eris, who can't be with us right now, he did a straw poll on the BDLL Telegram, and so there were 30% of the people on the straw poll said that EndeavourOS is amazing. 22% said it's okay. Nobody said they're not having a good time with it. 7% of the group said they're not interested in trying EndeavourOS. 26% said they didn't have time this week. 15% said I'm not interested in doing any distro exploration, which is fine. And no one said anything else. So this is actually probably leans, with all the options that are there, I would say this one leans a lot more positive, and I think that's a testament to how you've really put it together. But I did put down a bunch of history stuff on EndeavourOS, but it's probably better if it comes from the man himself. But so I guess we'll just maybe take this. Well, first let me go down the ground rules for everybody here. So the intent is to talk about the different aspects of EndeavourOS and discuss the experience after using it. This is a discussion by which is only supposed to be objective and constructive, and will be any non-objective opinions will not be permitted. So don't say this is garbage. It's not helpful to Brian or any of the rest of the team. Rather say, I wish it had this particular feature, or I really need these set of features to allow me to do whatever. Because we really want to benefit the conversation as much as possible. The point is to highlight the positives, but not ignore any of the lowlights of the project as well. So remember, this is a labor of love, so let's not poo-poo on the project. And so just to kind of kick it off, so in 2019, Antergos ended their run, and then you decided that you were going to pick up the torch and you were going to run with it, but in a different way. You didn't just take Antergos, you decided to do something a little bit different with it. And so I would really love to hear from you, like what was the impetus that really made this happen? Like what?
Well, oh, sorry.
What was the drive?
Okay.
What was the drive? Well,
the first drive was the community. So it wasn't about distro creation at all. The first idea of mine was just to create a forum. But then Joe, Manuel, and Fernando joined me, and they turned it into a distro making project. I had my doubts. I have to be honest. I had my doubts because none of us, only Fernando, who created a offline installer for, well, kind of Antergos, and he said, well, we can build on that. So we did, and the community was very, very supportive. So the reason why we started out just with one offline installer with XFCE on it was because we didn't know anything. I'm just going to be very honest. We had no idea what we were doing. And along the way, we figured out that how to deal with Calamares and how to do the online version of the project. And because we had originally we wanted to replace Antergos, but just because we couldn't do it, we had to move into a different path. And actually, that was the best thing that ever happened, because it gave us the space to, well, develop ourselves and to create an own profile. So that was actually a blessing.
Yeah, I would say that you definitely have been a blessing to a lot of people in the Linux community, because there's been, I mean, EndeavourOS has always been in the news at some level, and I've yet to find anything negative about it, because it's a great community. It's been extremely helpful, and super kind people. So you've fostered a great community, and I know you pull a lot of that from the Antergos or Antergos or however you say it. I don't. Maybe it's both. But you fostered a great community, and it's a great product, and you can actually see the passion that comes through in the project itself, and I think it's really great. Now, what we did is in our distro exploration, the idea is we're going to talk about different aspects of our experience of it, and so to start off, the ISO I downloaded, it came with XFCE, like a live version of XFCE. That's the only one, right? There's no other ISO? Okay, all right. So I just want to make sure I didn't maybe miss that somehow. All right, and then the install process I thought was super easy. Like it, I'm an OpenSUSE user, and I think that is easy. But when I use this Arch-based, which I've never had good luck with Arch, but I've had good luck with your installer. So I just want to kind of go around and see what other people had to say. Like, what did you install? I installed the Plasma version, and I really liked it. But I want to see, like, what, Eric, how did it go for you, the install process?
Well, so I've been using Endeavour since the first release, and actually it's been talking with and helping Brian whenever I get it. If there's anything I can ever do, just like with web stuff and forums and all that, whatever I could. I was an Antergos user, but I would only dabble because I had problems with it from time to time, and I think before the end came, there may have been some issues with maybe maintaining the quality or getting the QA done, because I started having some issues using it, and so it actually gone away from that style. And then when Endeavour had come out, it was right at the right time for me, and I jumped right on to, for me, I didn't use the first one because it was XFCE, like Brian said, but I was very impatiently awaiting the online installer, because really that to me is that's the magic of Endeavour, is that they support so many different desktop options, and that's full heavyweight desktops like GNOME and KDE and Budgie and Cinnamon and everyone you can think of, and then window managers and just a straight up no D at all. And so there's so many different options, and it's really just it's the utility of being able to spin up what is for most almost completely a vanilla install of Arch, besides some helpful tools like being able to set your mirrors and different basically foundational utilities for the operating system, which make life a little easier. So initially the installer sometimes would take it I don't know, at times it would be really quick, and then the same hardware, it would take a long time, and I was never quite sure why that was. And then they started putting messages in saying, even though the bar is not moving, it's really still installing. And I liked when they actually then had and I would open the terminal in the background and be watching the installation process happening to make sure it wasn't freezing. And then they opened it for you by default after a while, which I thought was smart. So it was like every little iteration, every release, there was a little bit more refinement on that process of making the installation easier. And so by now, this latest install, I had a second, I'd had Deepin installed actually from the last challenge. And so what I love about the Calamares installer now is the fact that you can replace a partition, which is even easier than setting all the different, root partition and all that different stuff. So you just click on the partition that you want to replace, and it'll, use that as the root and then use, the other partitions as it needs. So the EFI partition for me, the swap partition, that sort of stuff. And literally, I did that. The installer was much faster this time, I found. And, within like 15 minutes there I was, I chose GNOME because that's just what I'm favoring these days. And yeah, that's what you get. You get a nicely sort of themed desk. Well, actually, no, not even really themed. You get a nice wallpaper and then a nice welcome that gives you all the options. Like I said, choosing your mirror and some different things, cleaning up packages and installing extra things like a Office suite or Chromium browser, things like that. So it's really, it's a jumping off point distribution. Really, it kind of gets you all the way up to having this excellent desktop based on Arch, and then it's up to you to decide, what you do with it from there. And I've spent the week installing packages, and being on Ubuntu for so long and now using Arch again, the magic of like the AUR and having all the up-to-date packages, actually stuff that I assumed I'd have to go to the AUR is in the community repository or something like that. It's amazing how many packages are in the Arch repos, and then you have the AUR on top of that. And so, yeah, I had an excellent installation experience, and just all throughout this week, it's worked very, very well.
So may I ask, how did you go with Deepin on Arch?
Oh, no. I came from Deepin. I was actually
okay.
The week prior, we had done, just as we did this week with Endeavor, we had done Deepin the previous week.
Yeah.
So we had Deepin installed over it. Yeah.
Okay.
So who else? Sorry, go ahead. Colin, yeah, go ahead.
I found the longest part of the install is which desktop I want to choose. Oh boy, so many choices, but it's really good stuff. You get just, I want to, you eventually think, I just want to install all of them, but yeah, I installed same as you, GNOME, and that all went pretty well. And are we just on the install, or are we just going random here?
I think install for right now, if we want to just see if anybody else has comments specifically on the install.
So talk about the install process.
Okay, yeah, no, the install process went really well, no problem at all. So I was pretty impressed. I tried the printers and everything else. Thought I'd throw a few of those things in, and that all went well.
And Colin, you've been using Endeavor since the beginning as well, I believe. You've tried as long with.
I used to use Antergos a lot. Used to try that. Yeah, it used to have that Cinchi installer, I think it was called. Was it Cinchi?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we did one with Big Daddy Linux, and the Cinchi installer just let us down big time, because that thing either worked or it didn't work, and that was one of its biggest Achilles heels. I think was the Cinchi installer would sometimes just have these issues, and when it worked well, and when it didn't work, it really didn't work. So, but what EndeavourOS has done here, everything just seems to work really nicely, and they've built it all into the Calamaris installer with all those choices, which is fantastic, and that works really well. Yeah, so that's impressive.
For sure. You said, Jinda, you mentioned that you also had really good luck. What distro? What desktop did you use?
I picked KDE, and I have to say everything went smooth, and I have to agree with Colin 100%. The hardest thing was to decide which desktop I wanted to try. I mean, other than the fact that I really kind of liked in the background that it was showing me what it was doing. I think Eric pointed that out, and everybody else did. It was kind of nice, because that way I knew it wasn't hung up or making an error, or I could try to learn something if I wanted to pay attention to it. But it did work 100% perfect, no issues whatsoever.
Actually, it's funny. I forgot that I initially I use Ventoy. If anyone knows what that is so for booting, Ventoy turns a USB key into just a bootable device where you can then pick from one of the ISOs that you can drop into a folder. And so to try a new ISO, you don't have to burn it, copy it to the key. All you do is literally take the file from your file browser and copy the ISO into that folder, and bam, you've got it. And you can have multiples in there. So, I have like 10 different ones on this USB key. Well, apparently I hadn't updated it for over a year at least. It's been a long time since I initially pushed Ventoy, installed it to this key, and it wouldn't boot for me. It kept dropping me into a shell, and I was like, uh-oh, I wonder if something's wrong with their installer. And here I went on the forum, and someone had said, no, I'm using Ventoy and it works great, and maybe take a look at it. And so the forum was very active. I mean, I literally got that answer within like 10 minutes. And then I redeployed the newer version of Ventoy to that USB key, and then put the ISO on it, and yeah, it worked perfectly fine. So so that was a problem that wasn't their problem, but the community at Endeavor, which is a fantastic community. If you've never been to their forum, they have a worldwide community, which is really great, and usually you'll get answers fairly quickly. And they also have a prodigious Telegram group. I mean, that it's hard to follow the conversation. It flies by sometimes in their Telegram. They have so many users that are just very very into discussing it or helping people with problems. And so the community is probably, like Brian said, his first instinct was to create a forum for the ex users to have a place to be. And you can really see the community is a big focus for these guys.
Absolutely. I just wanted a big shout out for the community, because EndeavourOS is about the community. I mean, we do a lot of work on the installer, but the whole experience is thanks to the great community. And it's been said before, and it's been said on the forum, Endeavor is the community. It's just as simple as that.
And I think that's a key point to say about really any good distro. It's about the people, the users, the developers, maintainers, everyone who's involved in it. That's really where the quality comes through, because all technology is going to have problems at some point in time. It doesn't matter what your underpinnings are. If the people are good, then it will gloss over any of the problems that you do have, any technical problems you have, because you can work through those.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments on the install process, like how it went for them? I know EasyNix, welcome. I don't know if I've had you since I started doing this on the chat or the Zoom, the face-to-face, where you get to show your face or your avatar, whatever suits you.
My face is fine. Is my audio working okay?
Yep, sounds good.
You sound fine. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. No, my installs, every time I've tried Endeavor, has been positive. Atlantis, no exception. Very smooth. I installed Cinnamon Desktop, and like every other EndeavourOS install, it just works. So very happy with it. Always have been. It's the one Arch-based distribution I recommend consistently. If people ask me what to try, that's the first one. I say if you want a little bit more hands-on with setting it up, try my own, but Endeavor's a fine first choice.
I like the switch to a named release as well. I mean, I think the dated release was in some ways kind of convenient, just because you absolutely knew, like if I looked at the file, like I knew. But I do like the names, and I think there's some amount of like personification, if you will, like it becomes a release because it has a name, versus all the other releases which were just a series of continual sort of dated releases. The July release, now it becomes the Atlantis release, which I think is pretty cool.
But we had to do it actually, because the timing was a bit weird. The team has grown the last couple of months, and we have a lot of translators now. And to give the translators time to translate the announcement, well, we had to give them at least 3-4 days. I mean, they're volunteers. You can't say here's the announcement and I want it tomorrow. So the thing was, we kind of decided to freeze the development. And the thing was, the date on the ISO was, I think it was 29th of November, and we were going to release it on the 3rd of December. That was already scheduled. So I was the one who said, okay, that's a bit weird calling it a December release, but with a November stamp on it. So then I said, well, we're already in the space team, so why not spacecraft names? So that's why we began with Atlantis, with the space shuttle.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm a big fan of the space shuttles. Growing up as a kid, I wanted to fly one, but obviously that's not an option for me. But yeah, did anybody else have anything else on the installer they wanted to bring up the process?
I did have an experience, and it was just after the installer, if I may, this time.
Sure.
So when I went to the installer, I went live, of course, and I chose XFCE and Budgie, the two distros, the two desktops I'm more familiar with over the years. And I used Budgie, of course, on Solus. So I thought, okay, I'll give them a go. So I installed Budgie, installed XFCE. Both of them installed fine. I tested both of them. They seemed fine, both Budgie and XFCE. I thought, okay, I'm going to concentrate on the Budgie side and get that set up as I like it, get the theming and all that stuff. So I go into Budgie, and I'm away from the computer for a few minutes to come back, and it's blanked out or lock screen or something like that. Okay, that was a little quick for me. Let me change that. I usually turn all that off. I couldn't find the power settings. The power settings were not there whatsoever.
For Budgie?
I normally use, yeah, for Budgie that I normally use on Solus Budgie. So I checked the Endeavour forum, found there was a similar problem, found an answer. They said go to the Arch Wiki for Budgie. That then recommended that you add the GNOME group. So you basically pacman-s GNOME, and installs a whole bunch of packages. And once I rebooted, power settings was there and everything was fine. So just selecting Budgie itself does not install the complete package.
I have to admit that Budgie is the least favorite desktop.
It's my favorite.
But being the least favorite resulted into us not testing it.
Okay.
So we are aware of this problem, and we're going to tackle this one with our next release, which is going to be next week.
Yeah. But I say, Brian, once I installed the GNOME group, everything was fine. It works great. Huh?
Brian, how's that going to work with? So you say that the new release, is it a point release after Atlantis, or how is that going to work?
Well, we're going to. This is going to be a. Well, let me explain it a little bit better first. With this release, with the Atlantis release, we introduced a hotfix feature, and the hotfix feature is for patches mainly. But we decided also to release interim releases, and those are fixed releases, bug fixed releases that came up after the big release. And those interim releases are mainly upstream updates that has been fixed, workarounds that don't need a workaround anymore because it has been fixed, so we can get rid of the workaround, and bug fixes that will affect other packages also. So therefore, we need to release a new ISO. So we decided to call it at the name of the major release, and we're going to have 2 interim releases between each major release.
Okay.
Can you still follow me?
Mhm.
And where it's going to be called Atlantis Neo, and the second patch in January, if necessary. We're going to call it Atlantis Nova. And after that, there's going to be again a major release with a new name. But this way we keep up with the upstream changes from Arch. So
Gotcha.
to keep the ISO running. I mean, our latest, our previous release, the August release, had a lot of bugs in them around November, the end of October, the beginning of November, because of changes of NVIDIA. So now we decided to have these interim releases to follow up these upstream updates.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you.
That's cool. So I just want to give my little bit on the installation process. One, I really like what you've done with the slideshow. You know, as it's installing, kind of gives you other information. I like the art style you used with it, and it's very informative. And then if you want to see all the nerdy bits, it's just sitting right behind it. And I think it's nice to see that you left the like what's the system doing, you know, there and available, but also having the slideshow to watch and so forth. But I really appreciate the touches that were done to, you know, to tell you more about, you know, the system, the installer framework. And I like the fact that you have an astronaut as part of the artwork. And I know I know what the style of art is, but I really like it. It reminds me a little bit of like, you know, it's that funness that like Pop has with their installer with like the robots, but you have like astronauts and whatnot. And so there's something about that really, it gives it personality, it gives it character. And I think that is super important for distribution to have that kind of, you know, personality. I think personality for distributions is important, and so I really like that.
It's whimsical. I mean,
yes.
That's what it always makes. It's like that fantasy, whimsical. And actually, the best piece of artwork I've seen so far was somewhere in the forum. It made it look like a mission patch for Atlantis. Like, you know, the mission patches, like the suits had the mission patches, and it made it look like the Atlantis mission patch. And I thought, yeah, that's really slick. I dig that.
And maybe it's just me, but like from me, like my childhood growing up, you know, I watched, you know, I was very much into, you know, sci-fi, space exploration, and everything else. And so to me, there's something. I mean, despite the tragedies that have happened, like, you know, Columbia and the Challenger, the shuttle exploration for me. They probably don't call one of them Challenger when he releases. You know, Atlantis is fun. Endeavor, you could call them Endeavor, right? I suppose. But there's something like optimistic and hopeful when you see those, you know, when you see rockets launch in the air that are for going out into space, for exploration, for science. There's something like kind of an air of optimism around it, and I think you've captured that in your artwork, and so I think that's very cool, and I'm glad you did that. So when I say you, I mean you parenthetically, you the project. So I'm not saying you did everything, because that's not fair to the other guys.
Now the artwork is from the community members. That we don't have an art department. It's all the community, and it's almost every day they deliver these wallpapers, except for the main. We call him Andy, our mascot, the astronaut, and that has been especially created for us. So
that's super cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
So the next part of the exploration was how it came down to, this is going to be kind of an easy give me, I guess, with the with any Arch-based distribution. But how was the application selection? Did anybody have any issues with the applications? I know the answer is no, but if you want to talk about like the things that you installed here and how it went for you, this is a good time for that.
Well, I'm gonna probably start with my with the installer. I have one comment about the installer is it
Sure.
previously used to get stuck at a certain percentage. And I noticed this time it just works and it just progress just fine and it doesn't get stuck. So big thumbs up on that. The other thing I did use Cinnamon this time to install. I've always went back and forth with Endeavor. Endeavor been always great. When I first got my graphics card 5700 XT when it first came out, it only worked on Endeavor. No other distro actually I was able to get it. And I actually used the contact form to send an email to the team to just tell them thank you because they did an amazing work. Cinnamon regarding the apps, I think it just basic Cinnamon with basic apps. This is the one that you expect to come with Cinnamon, so no surprises there. All worked perfectly fine. Very, very impressed with this release. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
I continually find myself gravitating back to distributions who aren't necessarily trying to reinvent things from the standpoint of the desktop paradigm. You know, I don't need heavily themed systems. Like, I think that's probably something that I end up undoing a lot of those types of changes, like theming and choices that are very personal, I think, to people, especially Linux users who expect to be able to tweak a desktop. And there's certain, you know, distros that do something that's really interesting, but by and large, like, I'm looking for, I want something that gives me a good starting point without me having to undo work. Because I feel like that's how I had to exist in the Windows world and elsewhere, where you had to work really hard to, undo things that somebody else made a decision for you that, wasn't the decision I'd make. So, so besides distributions that like to be a little leaner with that, I really enjoy distributions who have user tools for managing the system to a certain degree. Like the thing, especially something like Endeavor, where they give you a set of tools that essentially let you get started using your system and then maintaining your system, but from a very base perspective, not being, overreaching. So you've got things like, I know I've said it a couple of times, but updating your mirrors, which in Arch is a big deal. For me, at least, I feel like I have to update them fairly regularly. So having that built in is a nice sort of visual way to do it is nice compared to doing it the Arch way, if you will. And then just everything that's in the welcome screen with, changing your display manager or the wallpapers or, adding more applications, how to get in touch with the community. So a nice welcome screen. And then, yeah, just the utilities there. I'm actually looking at the AKM simple kernel manager right now and thinking I'm probably going to switch to the Zen kernel because I've used it before and liked it. So it has those types of tools that I really enjoy that make life easier instead of having to go and figure something out or install a tool. Or sort of everything's there. So
I do agree that the welcome is great. It's a nice, it pretty much answers all your basic questions right then and there. Also, I want to say, this is a very special thank you. When I switched, I use Plasma. When I switched it to the dark theme, the welcome actually respected the theme immediately. There was no faffing about it. It didn't look all like some welcomes. They just look out of place after you change the theme. And so I just want to say I appreciate that. I don't know if it was used the same. I don't know what you did, but thank you. That's from me. It's just nice when it doesn't look like it's, out of place. So
well, that's all thanks to our wizard Manuel. I mean, if you ask him something and then you think, wow, it's going, his first response is, I'll try. And the first time I heard that him saying that, I'll try, it's like, well, it will take a couple of weeks. Honestly, the same day he does it. I don't know how, but
awesome.
He does it. Honestly,
Wow.
He's the wizard.
That's amazing.
One thing I'd like to say is Endeavour being a tool to install Arch Linux, it's not just that though. That also it's a tool for learning Arch, because they got in that welcome screen, they got so many links to show you how to do basic pacman commands, and they're all on video. How to use the AUR, and also explanations that can break your system if you use it. Those sorts of things are really good learning tools for people to learn how to use Arch and know what the pros and cons are within Arch as well. So I think they're really bringing the learning experience to people who are not familiar with Arch really upfront to the user itself. So I think that's a very helpful tool that they've got there within the welcome. So that's very impressive. And it sort of reminds me of the same lines as what what's his name, Eric Dubois is doing with Arco Linux as well. It's sort of along those lines, but you're sort of more upfront with the links and the big buttons, and it just takes you to a website. I think that that's a lot more simplified, and it's a really good learning tool. So that's impressive.
Yeah, and what Colin's referring to is in the for people who haven't seen it, there's a tips page and useful tips, and if you click on any of those tips, it takes you to the website, their wiki, with all of the help articles for that specific topic. And you're right, Colin. It does, like if you wanted to understand what the AUR was and what it is, how it works, and the first thing is an FAQ. What is the AUR? And it explains what it does.
I didn't dig into that help tab, but that's actually a really good point. So I think that's anything that helps you into the distribution. I think that's absolutely important, especially that answers those questions. I remember when I first started learning Linux, I had a hard time like, what does this mean? How come I don't see a C and D drive? Where's my A drive? I didn't understand all these things, but the fact that you have all those resources are right there to explain to you. It took me forever to understand the file tree, like to get my head wrapped around that. But and Pacman, not easy for me. So I appreciate the user interface that you have, the graphical user interface. Is it PAMAC that you're using? I don't recall what it's called. Or
No. We don't have a GUI. Well, it's the welcome app, and it actually we teach people how to use the terminal. And if you want to use PAMAC, you can install it yourself. We get a lot of, well, I get a lot of heat about that for not including PAMAC. But it's easier that way. I mean, if I look at 2021, PAMAC broke, I think, 3-4 times this year.
Oh.
And people were really panicking who were using it. So and from the start we already decided we are not going to include it, because if we include it and it breaks, people will blame us for not fixing it. And if you install it yourself and it breaks, then people will look for answers or solutions or workarounds or whatever. But if we provide it, then we will say, well, PAMAC is broken. Why don't you do anything? And that's the thing we wanted to prevent. And that's the experience we got from Antergos. People were so relying on PAMAC, and there's nothing wrong with PAMAC. But when it breaks and you don't know how to go into your terminal, people started to blame the devs, and that was one thing we wanted to prevent.
That makes sense.
I honestly think that's a good choice, because I think you're actually respecting the Arch way in a way that you're doing that, and like you said, you're also not getting the heat from anything breaking as well. But I think if you're going to use Arch, there's a certain expectation of getting to know how Arch works. And I think that's the tools that you provide. And I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and even Manjaro, they tell you do not do a full system upgrade with PAMAC. So, because usually end up breaking your your system. So I think it's a better approach not having it.
Yeah, and actually, funny enough that you mentioned it. If I think of the times when I've been most frustrated with Manjaro in particular, it's been because Pamac broke something. And you're right, Brian. It's like, okay, this is the tool you gave me, and it completely messed up my system. So, like, you know, so but if but I do install Pamac, and I have, just because, you know, it's a good way to browse packages. Browse and, you know, and to find out where a package is and like which repository and stuff like that. I don't necessarily rely on it to do upgrades. Like if I see if there's a lot of packages, then I'll do it through Pacman. And I really love the Pacman animation anyway, to sit there and watch it update. it's the little things in life.
It is nice.
Yeah. So Brian, from day one, I know I've always supported your decision about not to include Pamac. I remember when I first started exploring Arch years ago with a little Arch spin called Swag Arch. Pamac was always what broke it for me every time.
I do kind of wonder. I mean, like, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Pamac is often the case, and it's nice to speak to you, Asnix. I mean, you've been making wonderful videos about us, so I can thank you in person for it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for the great work. I mean, your system, you know, the Endeavor system is just as I said, just a great way to get Arch up and running. And the little tools you do provide are very targeted and specific and help a user, but not coddle them, which I think is a way Arch should be presented. So
thanks.
And by the way, Nate, I'm not sure if you know, but all those scripts that I've been using to make my ISOs, that belong to Esnix. That's who we're talking to, Esnix.
Oh, okay. So
the one who provides scripts and
so
everything, yeah.
he is your enabler for your new addiction. Now
Yes,
we
he
know.
is, yes.
Good one. Good one.
Well, that's excellent. All right, the next part I want to bring up is the general user experience for you. I want to just kick it off with Eris. He can't be here, but he says he loved how the Wi-Fi settings carried over after the install. So he chose Plasma to be the desktop to be installed. So when it finished installing, then rebooted and logged into Plasma, he found the Wi-Fi was already set up despite it being from a different desktop. He also liked the articles he found on the EndeavourOS website, and specifically the one for updating mirrors. So another positive on the documentation or the resources that you provide, which I think is very important. Otherwise, I wouldn't get through using Pacman.
Have you seen the video selection on our wiki?
I didn't see that one. No.
Okay.
Well,
no. They're not ours. I mean, they're
okay.
from mainly EF-Linux and Chris Titus Tech.
Okay.
I intended to include Eric Adams still on, but it's going to be there, Eric. I promised you it's going to be there.
I haven't made new videos in a while. I've told you though, if you need anything specific for the wiki or whatever, just let me know. I'm better when I'm given a task. I found that out about myself.
Yeah. No, but we created that because our old wiki, people couldn't find it or they didn't read it, or so that's the reason why I added those videos. Well, actually I added it, but I kind of find out now that people are reading the wiki instead of clicking the video, so that's a bit that's a big surprise for me, actually.
You know, if there's anything where there's commands involved, I think people like to see it. And I noticed that in my videos as well. And what I ended up doing a lot of times was I would provide a written resource somewhere, whether either like a GitHub gist or just something that was a text, you know, a resource more or less for stuff that I was covering in the video, because that people do like to see the demonstrative component of videos, but whenever you're trying to follow along and actually like type commands and stuff, it can be a little frustrating. So I'm not entirely surprised by that, but it's actually a good thing. I think people who take the time to write down things tend to feel undervalued because there is so much of a draw towards like, oh, well, I'll just watch a video instead of reading, but it's powerful to have it written down. So yeah, the wiki is a great resource. It really is. I swear I've learned more, and this is more broadly, the Arch Wiki, I've learned more from the Arch Wiki, and before that, the Gen 2 Wiki, and, you know, just by running into something and being able to go there and have that be a resource for me to learn, maybe not even necessarily how to fix my specific problem, but to understand how things work a little better. And then it's like, that'll lead me to the path that I needed to find something. So I've spent, I can't, how many hours in those wikis, just digging around and learning.
Well, the Arch Wiki is fantastic. I mean, everything is in it, but I do understand, and I am not the, I mean, it's mainly Joe and Manuel who are the technical brains behind EndeavourOS. And I sometimes, well, quite often I get new members on our forum when they are redirected to the Arch Wiki, that they don't get the Arch Wiki because sometimes it's too technical, and we hope that our wiki is that, I mean, it's more or less the same. It's not as extensive as the Arch Wiki, but it's a bit, I hope that the articles are a bit more layman terms, so that because the Arch Wiki kind of they think that if you are using the Arch Wiki, you read every kind of article, and then people are just following it. And I made that mistake in the beginning, and I thought it doesn't work. And then I forgot to do sudo su or something, or put sudo in front of it, or whatever. So that's what we wanted to do with our wiki, that every piece of article, it explains it from step 1 to the end.
Your guys' article is actually amazing. I mean,
thanks.
Arch Wiki is great and it has a lot of information, but it's so hard to follow. You gotta click links and links and links and links, and you might end up with, before you get your answer, you already clicked on like 10 links, and it's not for everybody.
I think the Arch Wiki is actually geared. It's geared for someone who has a lot more technical understanding and knowledge, and so they have a lot of already base level of information already, like on how Linux systems work. I think Arch Wiki is a beautiful system, but if you're like just trying to solve a problem like, how do I get my AMD GPU and my hybrid set up to just, how do I activate that? Then it's a little hard because you have a lot of things you have to run down and figure out that, oh, this means that, I got to go here to activate this, I need to whatever, and then you jump around a lot. But if you do have, you know, that, if you get a few years, you know, that, then I think that your Arch Wiki is pretty great. So.
I can say that, look, when I first started reading the Arch Wiki, I'm just a normal user, but I mean, it's confusing. But
I don't think that's true. There's no way you're a normal user.
Those blue bits of writing are actually links. I just thought they were highlights, but they're actually links.
Oh, yeah.
you know. So you click on that, and then you click on something else, and like Donnie said, you could end up opening about 10 tabs before you find the answer to what you're looking for, and then you get confused as to where you were before, and you've got to sort of backtrack yourself. So it can take quite a while to sort things out, and I think that depends on the nature of the issue as well. But I just think some more simplified versions can be very helpful.
Well, I mean, to begin with, the Arch Linux is typically, if you're going down the Arch route, you should be a little more technical to begin with anyway, because it's not exactly. I mean, if you're doing the pure Arch, you got to be technical to be able to run that for the most part. But you know, like with Manjaro and EndeavourOS, where they have, you know, it to make it a little easier to use Arch, but not necessarily. I mean, if you're going to just starting out in Linux or just an average user in Linux, hopefully you would know at least the basics before you attempt an Arch.
Well,
you know.
It's not my fault that Big Daddy Linux decided to have a Arch Linux install.
It actually is. It was your idea.
Oh my goodness.
That was fun.
That was a heck of a week. Yeah.
I think that was the most activity the Telegram ever had, ever.
Yep. Yeah.
And probably will ever have until next time we do an Arch, a basic Arch install.
Oh
See,
God.
I don't think I was around for that one.
No, you weren't, Jason.
Here quite yet. But
yeah, that was follow the archway, or you could also use an installer, but not a graphical one. You could do like scripts
no
and
GUI.
stuff like that. Yeah, no GUI.
Okay, yeah. See, when I first started, you know, coming out and hanging out with you guys, I was a complete. Yeah, I was technical. I had a technical background,
Right.
but when it came to Linux, you know, I was a noob.
Right.
You know, I was familiar with Mac OS. I was familiar with PCs. Bash and all that stuff, not so much.
You know, it's funny. Arch has this, at least on me, it had this effect of when I first came in contact with it, it seemed overwhelming and it was a lot to deal with. And same like you, Jason, I have a technical background and had actually used Linux on servers for a while. So I understand that it's the way the information is presented in a way, basically where there's no apology for it being just utterly technical. And if you don't want to try to understand what you're doing on your system, then you're going to have a bad time. So you kind of go through this whole process of like learning it and going through the installer. And I really like, there used to be the wiki page. There were two main wiki articles about. One was install, which was basically a step-by-step with links, like Donnie was saying, like links out to everything. So basically it was only one page, but by the time you'd get through it, you have read 100 wiki pages. And that was a great resource. But the end result of it all, after you get through and you have the knowledge of being able to install it, is I was so sick of doing it that way that that's when I started looking for things like Endeavor, where it was like, I already know how to do it the hard way. I don't want to do it anymore. I just want to go and have it start me where the desktop's installed. That's what I want, because I don't want to have to go through all those other things. And like, that's the point I was making with that installer option where you can say replace. It is the ultimate in like ease of install. You know, you already have your partitions laid out. You have the system set the way you want. I just want to replace this OS with this, or this distribution with this one. And you literally, you go through the basic first 3 or 4 screens, and then you click that and say replace, and okay, you know, it's, it's amazing. So anyway, go ahead, Colin.
Just to stick up for the Arch Wiki a little bit, I went in there with an expectation that the Arch Wiki was going to show me step-by-step how to install Arch, but it doesn't work that way, because it's not that simple. Because I think everyone has different hardware or a different process or a different way of, you know, how they format their partitions, and you can use different types of partition formatters as well. And so I think the expectation was, oh, it's just going to show me, I just have to put in these commands and done. So that was, on my part, an expectation that I had that made the Arch Wiki look a lot worse than probably what it is. And like a lot of people say, I think you do go back to the Arch Wiki because it's a very neutral site, because it has fixes for a lot of distros, not just Arch itself. So you can find solutions for other distros on the Arch wiki, which I've done many times.
Yeah, same here.
And it can. So yeah. So that's, I just thought I would stick up for Arch a little bit in that respect, because I think sometimes you can have an expectation and that can really make something look a lot worse than what it is. So, you know.
Yeah.
So is there any other comments about the general user experiences for Endeavor that people want to get in
I
there?
gotta say,
Yes, please.
I installed the XFCE one real quick, and I gotta say I'm easy to please. Brian, you guys had tap to click set up right off the bat in XFCE, which is not normally the case. And I find that really important, kind of like if you're a relatively newer user trying to install something like XFCE, and you got to figure out why tap to click's not working. The first software I installed was OBS, and I won't know until the morning if I did get the NDI from the AUR installed, so it shows up, but now I got to see if it will work in the morning. So that's what I did.
Okay.
Anybody else have any general user comments before we move into the areas you found difficult with Endeavor? So maybe we can provide something constructive to Brian if we have it. No? So for me, I needed the resources to be able to use I'm not an Arch user. I don't use it very often. I think the last time I used Arch was 2019. So I don't remember any of the Pacman commands. So I appreciate having easy access to those commands, like to how to use it, because like there's I forget what tripped me up last time. Eric, maybe you remember why I got my my shorts in a knot last time, but it was like the wrong dash. It was the wrong casing or wrong something, or I forget what it was.
It was some very trivial thing that just pushed you over the edge, basically.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, so I appreciate being able to it's, I don't know. I guess I'm spoiled. I don't know. I'm lazy. Maybe I'm lazy, but I do appreciate, me personally, I didn't have any problems, but I just explored the distribution, like the install process, and how difficult it was to install applications and so forth. So I didn't have any issues running EndeavourOS, but that's like, only a week of time on it. But I don't know, some people who've been using Endeavor or been using Archbase longer, I'd love to hear some feedback in areas you might find difficult, or what you do when you do have a difficulty, and how you solve that. It'd be great. Don't speak up all at once.
I don't know whether there would be any difficulties for anyone here, to be honest, because I think most of us pretty much know the commands. I mean, once your desktop's installed, it's another distro, isn't it? Once your desktop is installed. If there's any difficulties, it would probably be finding information, but like we said, the welcome screen pretty much provides all of that anyway. But if you're looking at it from a new user perspective, which is how I tend to do it, I think there's enough information there up front for people to learn what they need to learn for Arch. And that was what I was basically saying before. But I didn't go through every one of those processes, but I didn't find anything majorly difficult. But I mean, we're all technically inclined here, I think. So would be hard pressed to find something, I think. But it sounds like everyone here installed a different desktop and everything went fine. And
so the thing with Arch is it generally running an Arch system, at least in my experience, it isn't the install. I mean, yes, traditionally, if you're doing it the hard way, there's some issues with that potentially. And once you get the system running, things are fine. I think the bigger challenge is maintaining that system. The danger of Arch is such that it gives you access to so many different packages, and and the fact that it's a rolling release, some packages can get updated prior to other packages that end up becoming dependencies. And I've found that if I'm a little too quick to pull the trigger with updates, then you can get yourself in trouble. The opposite is also true. If you don't update frequently enough, then things get out of date far enough that then you update and run into problems. Case in point, I had a working install of Endeavor, and then I was away from my computer for 3 months last year. And when I came home and turned it on and tried to update, I should have read the news and I should have paid attention to the fact that there were some big changes that happened. I didn't. And so I paid the price by it breaking. At that point, I actually wrote an article on using chroot, to get into your system. You boot from a install disk and chroot into the system, and then you can, update. You're basically in that system as root user, from the command line, and you can, update the system. You can make changes to the packages and the configuration, and then fix the install basically. So very rarely is an installation completely trashed, unless the files on the disk have been irreversibly, deleted or something like that. But if it's just some bad update, you can usually chroot around it. At the time, I didn't have the fortitude to do it. I just didn't have the patience to do it. But so Arch, the difficult part can be, updating it over time. So, but you're right. You have access to the wiki and other things. But like I saw with my installation with Ventoy, I was able to get an answer within a few minutes through the forum or through Telegram. And again, going back to the community, I think that's what's so valuable here is even if you're a newer user, let's say you're a newer user and you tried some distributions or even like the main Arch forum, there's an expectation there that you have exhausted your ability, your resourcefulness to go out and find these answers on your own. If you come there with asking for an easy answer and you haven't done the work, you're going to get kicked. I mean, trounced. It's the way that system it's built that way on purpose. I think the culture is such that that's how they want it to be.
I think that's
Endeavor is completely opposite of that. I think their forum is very welcoming. And when they see someone who's enthusiastic about trying the distribution, about learning something about Arch, or is having difficulty with it, I've never seen anything but helpful people who will bend over backwards to help you. They don't have a reason to, other than to just try to be nice and help other people. So,
I did want to ask for the for the cheap seats. So how what is the recommended time to, like, how often should you update EndeavourOS? Like how long can you go? How negligent could a user be and still get away with it?
It's difficult to say because I read people who didn't use Endeavor for 3 months and updated it without an issue. But I think the wisest thing is once a week. I think, but it's not a science. I mean, our former founder, Fernando, did updates once in the 3 months without any issues.
So I wanted to discuss the news, actually, which what Eric was just covering. So you've got a couple of links on the welcome under general info. One link, which is news. Then you've got a main link at the bottom of the welcome page, software news. So any of those will allude you to the fact that there might be something wrong with an update. Is that what those links are for?
News is the news from Arch. So I think that's once in the 2-3 months. Then you have to reboot or do a manual intervention or something. And the software news is our news. That's on that leads you to the GitHub, and that will inform you about our apps, also about the Arch news. just to be safe.
Right.
And it also informs about new releases and everything.
I actually, as Nix, I think had some feedback on updating and how long you can wait. I think he's probably run into this in the past.
Yeah.
With Arch, I just update every morning.
Do you really? Okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
wake
me
up,
too.
go
Me too.
to my computer, run Pacman SYU, and don't update till the next morning. So
There you go.
it's never hurt. Occasionally, I'll check the news on the Arch website, but I don't know. In a year and a half of running Arch, last year and a half, I haven't had one issue. So
That's
it's
good.
been just as stable as Debian for me.
Yeah, and I agree with that
That's
as well.
good.
I think there is that sort of unfair. It's not a smear, but there are definitely people who love to trot that out as like a reason not to use Arch. Well, it breaks, and you're updating all the time. Well, and it's just two ways of looking at it. I ran Ubuntu for a year and had stable packages that I had to then augment with something like Flatpak. Here I'm on Arch, and like I said before, like I'm surprised that the stuff that's in that I used to have to get as a PPA or some other external source is already in the repository. So it's just two different ways to run your computer.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I need to add, I'm very conservative with my software setup. I don't really install stuff out of the AUR, a couple packages maybe. I run open source drivers, so I'm not looking for trouble.
Yeah, no, I also want to say one thing, because everyone is saying Arch breaks. Well, it never broke on me. But if there is something wrong, and Arch is wonderful about that, the same day that bug will be fixed. That same day, because, well, I update my system every hour, and once in a while something breaks, and then you can revert. But I think, well, in average, within 3 hours, that bug has been fixed upstream by Arch.
That's amazing.
And yeah, and it's everyone is saying it breaks, but Arch is also lightning fast of fixing it.
That's true. That's been my experience as well. Yeah.
Well, let me ask another question. For those, let's say, that want to update weekly, so I'm going to keep this EndeavourOS install going for a while. Is there like a better day of the week? Like, sometimes Monday's not a good day because, people are just getting into work. And sometimes Friday's not a good day because they're trying to get out of work. And so they're not checking things before they finish and, check out for the day. And Sunday seems like it can go anyway on Sunday or whatever. So is there like a day of the week maybe that'd be best? Like Tuesday a good day, or Wednesday better, Thursday? I mean, like, what would you say? I'm just spitballing here. I want to have a little fun with this. So what would you say for a guy like me?
Oh goodness!
Monday
Don't
or
think
Friday.
it matters.
Do it Sunday.
Sunday. Okay.
Sunday, yeah.
All right.
Sunday.
So tomorrow I will do an update. So I only updated I think Wednesday is the last time I updated. So I will go Sunday, and Brian, if it breaks, I'm not going to complain. Don't worry. So I just won't complain.
Well, visit the forum first.
Okay, I'll visit.
If you see,
I have a login.
If you see MariaDB breaks, then don't do it.
Okay. All right.
Can somebody send Nate a cron job for every hour, please?
Well, I'm just just for fun. I'm like just for funsies. I just like to have Linux should be fun, and I think that I think Endeavor so far for me, because I am on the forums. I lurk though. I don't, because I usually get my answers. I don't have to. Most of the answers are there already. But anyway, so I just lurk. But anyway, yeah. So okay, cool. I'll update tomorrow at about noon, and we'll see how it goes. And if not, I'll wait and update again at 15 or 3 hours later, 3 p.m., and we'll see how it goes. So.
Well, someone
one
might
thing-
be on lunch break at noon. So you
true.
might wanna pass that out.
Okay. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Okay, so I'll update it. Maybe 2. Does 2 sound good? 2 Eastern.
Yeah. That's when the siestas start.
Right. Okay. So they should be good to go then.
I was just going to ask Brian, actually, I didn't see anything within EndeavourOS regarding flat packs or snaps. So obviously you guys are not interested in putting anything of those in there, or it's just easy enough for someone else to.
There's a wiki article about it.
Oh, was there? Oh, I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
it was there.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I
But
missed that.
we don't put it in our repo or something. But
No, fair
we
enough.
do have a wiki article about those, both Flatpak and Snap.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry.
I like that the approach that you've taken, like you were saying with PAMAC, where it's basically, yeah, you could do that. There's no problem with that, but we're not, it's not an official part of this. So, and honestly, if you didn't have a graphical package installer and you had Flatpak enabled, you've only really saved a person one step, because then they're going to have to go to the command line anyway, the terminal anyway, to install packages. And so someone who's willing to do that probably already knows how to set up.
All right. In all fairness, I would say I'm not a fan of the Pac-Man syntax, but I'm probably less of a fan of how Flatpak does it, because although it's regular words, you have some crazy title. I realize it's like a fully, it's like, com dot something dot something dot whatever the name of the package actually is. I'm like, well, where does this even come from? I don't know. But anyway, so in all fairness, installing
it's namespaces, like
I
they
get
just
it.
have a different way of doing it.
Yeah, it gives me a headache. So,
But you don't have to do that. You can just say Flatpak install Zoom, and it understands what you want.
see, that never worked for me. I had to actually do the entire. Maybe it's a problem with
Oh.
OpenSUSE or something. But like I wouldn't install
Maybe.
like the
Well, I mean, if
LeoCAD.
it matched more than one thing, so if I
That could be.
if I said Zoom, it'll show me which one do you want, and then
Okay.
put in the number. And,
Maybe that's changed since the last time I used it in the terminal. That could be. That
okay.
could have been from long ago. That could be. One of those memories that should have been taken out a long time ago. All right. Well, there we go.
Well, to back you, Nate, I also had that issue, but it was 2 years ago or something.
Yeah.
I tried it. It was difficult.
Yeah.
It was, for me, it was easier to get it from the AUR or from the Arch repository than from Flatpak.
Yeah, maybe they have fixed it. Maybe Eric's right, because
Yeah.
I've only ever since used Discover to install Flatpak, or I just did the full, like I would do a Flatpak search, whatever the name is, and then I copy and paste the really long name for something that should be rather small. I understand the reason though. I understand the the fully defined namespace thing. I get it, but yeah. So that'd be my only.
I think people who run, so Nate, you run you run Tumbleweed, so you're on a
Right.
rolling release, and folks who are already on Arch, again, I don't think there's as much of a reliance on Flatpak and snaps and app images, because you have a lot of the stuff already in the repositories, let alone then having access to the AUR. And then I think once you exhaust that, then you're looking maybe at package, universal package formats. But you really got to go. For me, I put Flatpak on here just because it's a habit at this point. I'm so used to having to use it elsewhere to get up-to-date packages that even though I've installed it here, I really haven't used it very much. I haven't had to.
For me, the Flatpaks I use are they're bundled with all the bits of stuff to save me extra steps. Like, okay, for instance, like LeoCAD, it's the Lego CAD software that I use.
It includes all the dependencies, right? along
Everything,
with it.
so I don't have to download separately the latest data pack, because they can't ship it in the OpenSUSE repository for some distribution reasons. But Flatpak isn't encumbered by the same legal restrictions that OpenSUSE is.
To Esnick's point, one of the other reasons I like running universal package formats and having them be separate is that they do sort of abstract a layer of complexity away from the base system. So you don't have a bunch of dependencies and a bunch of like stray packages and just stuff gunking up your main underlying distro. On top of that, you've got other things. And so if something in Flatpak breaks, like whoop-de-doo, you're not going to hurt your system necessarily. Whereas if you and if you think about the old days of having say 200 different installed applications on top of the system, when you do a system upgrade, you've got
Got a while.
gigs of stuff to download and update versus if you're updating those in a different way. So I think that's another virtue of in my mind at least, of those package formats. So
Yep. So, do anybody have anything else they want to go on about any areas of difficulty or general user experience? Because if not, then I want to go into first. Does anybody have anything else they want to add on that? No. All right, then I want to go into. So let's say you've met somebody in an elevator and you're going to tell them about EndeavourOS. I don't know why you do that. Number one, elevators are scary, but two, I'm just kidding, they're fine. But two, what would be your elevator pitch for why somebody should use EndeavourOS? That's so I think it's good it's good feedback for for Brian to know that what people see as the key reason that makes EndeavourOS a great option. So anybody who wants to hop in, I'm sure Eric has got something immediately. I can see on his face.
No, I actually, because Esnick's mentioned that he's been recommending it, I'm curious to see why he does recommend it.
I just think it's been the most reliable and closest to Arch, yet provide a few helping hands. And the biggest one is their forum, their community. I think you cannot do better than going to the EndeavourOS community and joining. You won't get a friendlier bunch of Arch users, I think, anywhere. So
yeah,
that's I think the biggest selling point. So
yep, yeah, that's a fair point. I would completely agree with that. I mean, I think it's sort of magical in a way that you've got this online installer that you just on a whim you can say, well, no, I'm going to try that desktop without having to. I think of whenever a new version of Fedora comes out, and I want to try the spins, that means I'm downloading lots of different ISOs, which, I have a fast connection. It's not that big of a hardship, but the idea that from a single ISO, you have the ability to pick whatever desktop you'd like. That's the utility of that is really great. And then as Nick says, that the fact that they really don't do much to the underlying Arch system, they're not making a lot of changes to the desktop. They're not making a lot of changes that are they could potentially conflict with something else upstream. And you look at something like Manjaro, where they do use the Arch base, but they also have their own repositories because they're mirroring all those packages and they have a release cadence and cycle that they go through. Endeavor is very different from that, where it is just straight Arch, and that's what the repositories are fixed on. There's one Endeavor repository which has their set of tools, and they clearly define what those tools are and what they are, what they do, and why they include them, and then everything else is Arch, and that's great.
That certainly reduces the technical liability then of the project, I would say, by not having to tweak a lot, not having your own repository. So what else is there for a good elevator pitch?
Elevator, it depends. Is the elevator music playing or not playing?
Well, it's quiet. It's kind of subtle. It's piano. It's a piano instrumental, so it's not it's not synthesizer.
Well, and I would have to say that. Could you imagine that you install this operating system that you never have to install again, and all you do is just update completely, and you can install any different environment that you wish, and then it's all yours to use forever, and all you got to do is update every now and then, and you have most applications at your disposal.
Yeah, but I bet it's really expensive, huh?
It sounds expensive.
It sounds really expensive.
Can you get three low payments of only $9.99 a month for?
Oh, wait, act now, and you get.
But wait, there's more. It's free.
Was that only if I call in the next 2 minutes?
Ah,
No, you can call me anytime.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you where to get it from.
Well, I think those are really good points, though. I totally agree. You got the community is a huge plus. You don't have toxic people there, or at least you keep them quiet. So good job on that. And then the fact that you can the options you have of desktop, and the fact that you have a pretty vanilla desktop experience, so you can customize it yourself. I think that's really huge for me anyway, because I get it. Defaults are king. I've heard that argument many times, and I don't disagree with that. But there's not one desktop environment that I've ever left the default on, because I just don't like it, the default of anybody's. So no offense to anybody out there that does it, but I just like what I like. But anybody else?
Just to add on to what you just said, Nate, I find it easier to set up a desktop the way I want if I'm beginning from the default DE setup. There are fewer problems.
Sure.
There are fewer things to undo to make it to then redo. So when I installed the Cinnamon desktop, I had the Cinnamon desktop as shipped by Cinnamon with a very nice EndeavourOS wallpaper. And that was it. And then I could apply my themes. I could add the papyrus icons and make it look the way I wanted it to look without having to figure out, okay, what do I have to undo first? So
That's a really good point. I like that a lot. Now, Rick, you've been quiet since you've hopped on. I don't know if you had something you wanted to chime in on. You're more than welcome. There's no you don't have to raise your hand or anything like that.
Can you hear me okay?
I can. A little bit on the quiet side, but
Microphone's working.
Yep.
Yeah, as far as elevator pitches go, I think I would point out the beauty of it. It's a nice looking distro overall. And you can, of course, you can download and pull whatever wallpapers you're on them, but its default wallpaper looks nice. And doesn't look like one I don't like is Fedora 35's wallpaper. Default for at least KDE puts on there. Looks like some kind of weird stuff. So anyway, it looks better than that one. Anyway, the other points would be that it has a lot of helper apps in it. So if somebody's really wanting to try Arch, that's a good one to start with. And it's a helper in the sense that it puts the terminal up front. So people that aren't used to terminal even can learn, what to do and that kind of thing. Can actually get used to seeing it on the screen, That's a good point. And yeah. And it's just as easy to install overall. I didn't have too much trouble installing it. I tried installing Vert Manager first, and had some problems with it, but I went over to No Boxes and installed fine on that. So,
Rick, your elevators run out of floors.
Yeah, we've gone at least 6 floors now, Rick. I'm just
He's going up to the penthouse of the Empire State.
was usually like Elf and hit all the buttons, so you'd have to stop at every floor, so I couldn't get there. I think that's that's a good point, though.
I would just say, you want an easy fix for Arch? I'll set you up, no problem.
That's a good point. It's an easy setup for Arch, and then I think Rick brought a great point up, and I think it's really good to emphasize the hand holding you get by Endeavor with all the knowledge database that you're given. I think is really huge too, and I think that's a real high point for why someone should try Endeavor. Probably not for the brand new to Linux user, but let's say somebody who really wants to get into the nuts and bolts and really own their system. I think that's a really good it's a really good distribution for that. And it'll make you so you can try Arch without wanting to put your fist through your monitor. It's great. So
Linux is a good distro overall, but I think it has some issues with like the just putting in doesn't always get installed with the net,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. Usually, a lot easier to be lost that point at the time.
Yeah. Well, I think that
Experience.
I think that Arco probably targets a slightly different audience. That they're a different. They have a different customer base. Not, I know customer is not the right word, but different client. That's not the right word either. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's a different group of people that I think they're probably targeting than
Different
Endeavor.
user
Yeah,
base.
like Vince.
Right. Yeah, like Vince. Vince, who's probably, you know, he's a card. Should be dealt with. All right. Anybody else have anything else you want to say about Endeavor that they would like to people to know? I don't know if Jinda, he hasn't said much. I don't know if
Oh,
there's anything you
sorry,
wanna-
guys.
That's right.
No, actually, everything worked. The only thing that I could say that I thought was odd was the fact that I wanted to partition a hard drive and I had it installed like gparted or something. It wasn't installed by default. Other than that, everything worked. Everything was flawless. Everything was beautiful. I mean, that little tiny little thing that I just said, who cares? I mean, other than that, I think it's great.
But Gpart is there, right?
I did KDE and I could not find it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
KDE,
and I guess there's KDE has their own, and that one
Yeah.
that one wasn't there either. I'm
Gpart?
not saying it should be installed by default. I just thought it would be.
Yeah,
you know?
KDE Partition Manager. It's
Yeah.
it's a really nice it's a nice cute version.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Brian, I want to super thank you for being here and for chatting with us about it. And I think what you're doing with EndeavourOS, I hope it continues to endure for many years because I think you're certainly filling a niche that people who, you know, with certain technical expertise and people who want to do, you know, the arch and be closer, I think, closer to the metal, I think, you know, closer to the pavement maybe than than some. So it's great. But I did have a question for you, and I should have probably fitted it in earlier on. But the actual technical differences between Antergos and Endeavor, I know what you reduced the amount of liability in maintaining the distribution than what Antergos was. What were some of those things you just didn't do the same? Like what are some of those?
Well, the Antergos repo was huge.
Okay.
If someone requested something, it became part of the repo.
Okay.
We didn't do that just because the Antergos projects ended because they couldn't maintain it anymore. It was too big,
Okay.
it was and we wanted to prevent it. So we tried to have this our repo to be as slim as possible. So that's
Okay.
the main difference. And of course, Kinshi. I mean that was actually the first obstacle we had because we couldn't handle Kinshi, and that's why we jumped to Calamares. And again, which was a blessing because we went our own way with that one.
Okay.
Yeah, and you've actually worked with them on developing new features and things, haven't you? With Calamari.
Joe, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
And we hope with this new release, and otherwise we will release it in January. There's going to be an update on BTRFS, ButterFS. It was there today, but it isn't quite there yet. But that was thanks to Joe. And also Calamares is now more involved with Pac-Man. And that's also thanks to Joe. So yeah, he's the big engine behind this whole.
Got it. Well, I know it's very late there, so we've still got a little ways to go. But if I don't know, Nate, did you want to let poor Brian go?
I want to thank you all for inviting me, and there is God, now I don't know what to say anymore. So I'm really tired now.
It's all good. And I want to thank you again for being here. It was an absolute pleasure, and we'll hope to keep in contact with you on the interwebs so we can continue to share the happiness and the positivity of the open source world. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good job.
Thank you all.
Brian. Thank you.
Brian.
Thanks for
Brian.
letting me go to
Thanks,
sleep.
Brian. Great
And
talking to you.
we're going to fix Budgie.
Thank you.
Hey, all right.
Bye.
Wow.
Bye.
All right,
Bye,
we'll see
thank
See
you.
you, Brian.
Bye-bye.
See you, Ron.
Yeah, so I really am. I'm very happy with that whole project. I think that's just. I think it definitely needs to be emphasized. That forum has just been fantastic. So, yeah. All right, so that means that we have to search for another distro for next week. And I do want to say that so next week will be actually our last biddle for the year. And I'll have another announcement next week. But suffice to say, the 18th of December will be our last biddle of the year. 25th, it's Christmas Day, and I don't plan on doing anything but being extremely lazy after the kids make a mess of the house in the morning. So,
Good plan.
well, one of the things I like to do is like to have a
suggestion, Nate.
yes.
Okay, Ali Present Arms is in the chat. He works on PCLinuxOS, and I don't think
Oh.
we've done that for a long time.
So I like that idea because it's an RPM based. In fact, it's a fork of Mandrake, if I remember correctly. Is that maybe Present Arms Linux can
Many years ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think so. So Mandrake was my first love when it comes to Linux. We broke up, and I went to OpenSUSE. But anyway, so we can. I mean, I'm actually really good with that. Do you know if anyone from the anyone here has any contacts with the? Anyone-
Ali, he maintains the Trinity and OpenBox versions.
Okay. So maybe if he wants to join us, that'd be really awesome next week. But if that's what we want to do, is anyone in favor of PCTLC OS? I mean PC.
Keep me out of this. Keep me out of this. Yeah, Ali used to be on the chat with us quite a fair bit, so he hasn't been on for a little while.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
Rock was a more likable guy, so maybe I can coax him to hang out with us.
He might come back, but he did say he hasn't uploaded one for quite a while. I seen him saying in chat. Should we ask him to make sure it's okay that
The
he's
main
up to
versions
speed?
like KDE and that are usually updated very fast. He doesn't
Oh, are they?
maintain
Oh.
them, but you can
Oh,
always
okay.
try. It's the same core system, just different desktops.
Oh, okay, all right. So which one? So we just try any PC Linux OS we like, is it? Or?
That's
Yeah.
what I would suggest.
Yeah, so it's an
Okay.
exploration. So you're gonna, I mean, there are different ways of looking at an exploration. You can do something, try something new and different, desktop environment wise, or if you're looking to see how it compares to maybe like what you're used to. Like I'm a Plasma user. I'll probably always be a Plasma user, maybe. So I will probably try the Plasma unless something else, slaps me in the face and says try me. So
He says that the Plasma and Mate are both updated.
okay, that's good to know.
To Mate.
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 Whichever. So, how do you want to say it? As long as you know how to install it. So I guess if there's no objections, PCLinuxOS, I think is a great choice, and we'll go with that. And then, well, excellent. So that will be the last biddle for the year. We'll take a week off, and then we will. Well, we may actually take that's the first. So I'm gonna leave that up in the air right now. I got to talk to some peoples, but next week we'll have another announcement, and we'll go from there. Well, excellent. I think that was a great. That's probably one of our best that we've had this week.
Yeah, that was good. It really felt like we were getting back to let's really look at it, get some feedback together. We're out of practice. We haven't done it in a while.
It's true.
Outside of Peter on budgie cheevers.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good. You know, and maybe also Jinda giving feedback about not having a partition manager. I mean, that's.
I love the one-to-one contact, and Brian was very good about it.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing is, you know, the rules are, you know, I really want to make sure that we're giving positive, you know, usable feedback to the distro peoples. I don't like the idea of, you know, like I say, poo-pooing on any projects, because this is something that people love, something that people want to do, something that people have a heart for. And you know, to me, I think about, like, you know, as a kid, you know, when that, you know, grumpy uncle just like absolutely just crushed your dreams. You know, I still remember that very clearly. And I don't ever want to do that to anybody, and I don't want this to ever crush anybody, you know, at all, ever. So
Right.
to me, it's very important that we're constantly being, you know, we're elevating others. Yeah, because I mean,
I wonder if those rules would change if we did a PC TLC OS.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say.
well,
There's there you can't see it, but there's an asterisk after the statement. That,
yeah, there is.
made. Yeah.
Oh, poor Collins.
Yep.
No, I think PC Linux OS. That's one of those ones that's just been out there for a while.
Yep.
And I haven't checked back in on that in a long time. So that's
It
Same.
was actually the second distro I tried when I got into Lec.
Really?
Second or third.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried. So I last used it, I think, in 2000. Like, I tried it in 2006 or 7, I think. 2007. Because that's when I got my first 64-bit laptop. It was a Core 2 Duo, Dell Latitude D630, and there were some kernel issues in Mandriva at the time, and so someone said I should try PCLinuxOS, but they didn't have a 64-bit version for stability reasons. And I'm like, well, I got to have a 64-bit version. I can't stand this 32-bit. I spent all this money on a new laptop. I want to take advantage of it. Which, by the way, it was also the last time I ever bought a new piece of hardware to put Linux on. So there we go. Since then, I haven't done that. I always get older stuff. So there was an article that I've been wanting to talk about now for the last 3 months, but we've always ran out of time. And so I specifically didn't look up anything else just so I could talk about this. So there is, it's probably probably for most people, this is going to be like, who cares? But there was when I saw this on Tom's Hardware, there are new USB Type-C rating logos. So Type-C USB can now push out up to, I guess maybe theoretical, 240 watts of power.
Wow.
Yeah. Obviously not everyone. It's got to be rated for that.
Well, you're gonna have to have a special cable. There's no way normal cables are gonna. Really? I mean.
Yeah. So
I for laptop charging, that's been it's interesting for you to bring this up, because I think USB-C does seem to be everything's getting pushed to that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well. So
I'm actually I'm using this laptop here, in a sad hotel. I mean, in a nice hotel room. But I'm using I've actually only ever used USB-C charging on this laptop, and it pushes. I've measured it. About 65 watts is what it pushes into this laptop, so it's a pretty low power machine, and it's been great. I'm surprised how well it's worked out for me, but to see now that they're able to get up to 240 watts, that seems, I don't know, crazy go nuts that they're actually able to deliver that. But it was just a short little article on the fact they can now there will be USB-C cables that are rated for 240 watts of power delivery. And
isn't that over the allowed limit to go on an airplane?
Well, that's a battery you're thinking of. A battery can't be more than 99 something. I can't.
Certain number of watt hours is what they can't.
Yeah.
I think you can't have.
Yeah.
It's
under
the
100.
electrical source has to be able to provide that, though. So.
240 watts is not that much power, really. So, from my understanding right now, USB. Okay, actually, that's quite a bit. So, 20 volts is the upper end, I believe, for USB-C right now. So that means it can somehow push 12 amps through that copper. I imagine it's probably not continuous. I imagine it's probably like it goes up and then down. It won't deliver continuously because you would probably just have cable meltdown. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting, and I'm interested in seeing like what the first device that comes out that actually has that kind of like how big is that cable? I imagine it's gonna be bigger than this cable here, which is running this computer right now.
It has to be, right? It has to be better shielded because you're talking about you're starting to talk about power levels that can be very dangerous. So the cabling is going to have to be more robust to be able to.
So I have I'm hooking up my festive light displays, and I'm way behind schedule this year. So I've already been admonished by Steve in the over Telegram. But so I got these 30 amp 12 volt power supplies, and those are pretty big. I'm using I think 14 gauge wire on that to power the my power rails, if you want to call it that. And I'm looking at that saying to myself, wow, okay, so it's only half that ish, a little less than half that. But you're still talking, you're going to have at least 18 gauge wire, I would think. Maybe 16. I don't know. It seems like 12 amps is quite a bit to push down a USB cable. But anyway, so I thought that was interesting. That was just I was fascinated by that article, and I don't know. I guess we'll see what comes from that. Laptops burning down, maybe some homes and some carpet getting burn marks in it from the cables.
I think it's nice to see that we've gone from a world of cables that were more or less OEM type situation where they were all specific to I had a box full of wall wart chargers that I kept just in case, because you could never get the replacement charger for something, or so I do like the idea that it's, I guess, more or less the potential for it to make it the de facto charging system or technology. And you think of things like cell phones and devices too, right? We want those things to charge faster, and although the technology we have already is sufficient, you can't really push too much toward a battery or fry it. But anyway, like the idea that it could simplify charging cables and not have to deal with which one is that. And I know all of my devices are USB-C, so I have a couple different chargers that they wouldn't be strong enough to power, like according to some of the things that you just said. But it's a convenience to have the same type of charger on all your devices. So I can imagine that being something that simplifies that whole situation for laptops and other devices that would need that sort of power.
Yeah. I'm not sure what I think about the USB-C standard. I wish the contacts were a little bit wider, a little more cross-sectional area, because I've had, maybe just the phones, because phones are just dirtier, but it seems like I've gone through quite a bit of, gone through quite a few cables, USB-C cables. I've been using this like magnetic charger thing for quite some time, because it makes it a lot easier to, the attachments. I think I've shown this before here, but it's kind of nice so that I can just not stress the port. But
MagSafe.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the connector itself is probably the weakest point because they are so small. Mm-hmm. And I do worry, they're small, they're flat, they stick out of the device, and I think it could be pretty easy to just accidentally hit that the wrong way or and do damage to the port. So,
yep, it makes you hope that the day that your laptop was getting soldered together, that the guy doing that or the robot was having a good day, and that there's nothing wrong with the solder, and the solder joints are nice and beefy. There's no dry soldering. But yeah.
Well, I can imagine again, even being the de facto charging type of choice, because I've noticed that as I get more and more new devices, everything is a USB charger now. Mm-hmm. For the most part. at least every small electronic device, because it's just, I assume it's way cheaper to have a, power over USB than it is, to have a dedicated wall wart type charger or something. So yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you brought it up, because now I'm thinking, how long is it going to take them to get that out? And like, I read the comments on the Tom's Hardware article where it was like, well, this will render all of the USB ports obsolete. And how are they going to deal with those types of problems if you have a huge charger and a USB-C and you accidentally, and two cables sitting there, and you pick the wrong one and plug it in? Is it going to, destroy the device? That kind of thing.
I would think there'd be some sort of auto negotiation. I know that, so I have a couple of EV vehicles, and they're able to sense how much resistance is in the lines.
Okay.
As far as, so like if you have a higher resistance in the lines, so basically if you have a thicker cable, it can tell maybe by voltage drop or something what it expects, and so you'll get better output into your vehicle based on the quality of your wiring. So I know that's a thing.
Got it.
Yeah, so smarter devices will be able to sense that, and you might fry your, a cheap device, but
yeah,
right.
That little cheapo flashlight that has the USB. Plug it in and it just explodes.
The little personal fan in your, your hat. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep. It'll be bright for just a second, and then it'll all be over.
Right.
But it was a fan. How could it be bright? Well, 240 watts.
I have one question on PCLinuxOS, and I don't know if anybody knows. So there are 3 different installation ISOs for KDE. There's a standard that is 2.8 gigs. The Dark Star I already read it's 1.8 gigs and it's stripped down. So they leave out a lot of packages. And then they also have one that's called Magnum, which is 3.7 gigs. So about another gig higher than the stock one. I'm assuming that's one with just a bunch of extra software included. Does anyone know the difference between Magnum and the regular one? I'm just gonna go with Magnum and see what it is. Okay.
Yeah, I actually run PCLinuxOS, but I use Trinity. So.
I was gonna say, you could probably just, my guess is it just like the how much it comes down on the ISO. I think that's probably the exact same thing otherwise.
Could be. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna give that a shot.
I don't know.
I'm gonna get them both and then just be able to compare them. Just do virtual machines to start with. Yeah.
Ali mentioned in chat that it comes with a shed load.
Shed load.
That's very funny.
Yeah,
shed load.
Sense.
Okay. I might do the shed load, because why not? I want the rake and the shovel.
Maybe that's what they should call it.
With the wheelbarrow.
No, you don't get a wheelbarrow. You get the shed. A whole load of
okay.
Loaded shed, but no wheelbarrow.
Is it a shed big enough to put like a riding garden tractor, or is it not that much of a shed?
It is, but it's covered in whatever's loaded in the shed.
Oh,
you have to dig it out to get at it.
A few bales of hay.
So Eric, from their website, it just says the mini version Dark Star, the normal version KDE, and the mega version Magnum.
Mega version, okay.
So,
well, their search doesn't work then, because I searched and it didn't come up. Oh well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the KDE desktop download page on their website.
Oh, okay, cool.
And I noticed the XFCE edition was released the same day KDE and Mate were. So if people want that, that's up to date as well.
Got it.
It's good to know. Well, all right, it is that time of night, so I'm going to go around the horn and like a last word. So Eric, last word. And anything that you want to push. If you want to plug something, that's what this is for. So
No plugs. Just happy to be here. Happy to see everybody's smiling faces, and I had a great week with Endeavor, and I was really happy to see Brian join. I haven't talked to him in a while, and I worry about him at times because I know he's a very busy person. He does have a full-time job in addition to Endeavor. So
we should have asked about that. So what are you doing?
Yeah, Well, I think that's the truth for a lot of the developers, and that's
Yeah.
why we should be being extra nice to them. So anyway, yeah, that's it. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for putting this on, and keeping this going.
Well, thank you once again for being here, and I also want to thank you for contacting Brian, because I forgot to do it on Sunday, and I sent him a message I think on Tuesday, and so he told me that you already contacted him. I'm like, oh, good. See, without Eric, I would be up a stream without a paddle. And so thank you very much, Eric. I'm glad you could be here. It was a great conversation. Your knowledge on Endeavor far outweighs mine. So thank you. Peter, last word.
Not Linux related, but still quite important. Today was a day where anyone who knew me online saw the word Kentucky, reached out to me to check out if I was okay. Because Western Kentucky, and not our area, but in Western Kentucky, especially a town called Mayfield, got devastated by a tornado last night. Over 50 people dead.
Oh, wow.
So it was quite devastating to our area. I know that our sister food bank in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, will be helping with that, as well as a lot of the emergency services. So my hearts and prayers do go out to Western Kentucky.
That's a good point. You know, we got to be thankful for life, because you just never know when. You know, we're one bad move from getting run over by a bus, really. So so it's good to be grateful for the time that you have, and it's a good point. So if you know somebody in Kentucky, maybe you should reach out to them. I actually didn't know there were tornadoes there until about an hour before tonight. So I've been disconnected.
That's right. Nate is secretly at the OpenSUSE headquarters. If the green walls behind him.
No. I wish. All right. Well, thanks for being here, Peter. And I hope that whatever, I'm hoping and praying everything goes well in Kentucky, that things get put back together. So, Jason, last word.
Oh, it's just great being here, being able to listen to everything that's going on in the Endeavor world and learn more about the history of that OS. And I got to tinker with it a little bit, not much, throughout the week, but it was good. And again, just thankful that to everybody who's put in the work to keep this going, and Rocco for the initial start. And it's great seeing you guys again.
Yeah, actually, until tonight, I didn't realize that the reason PAMAC wasn't included is because of the problems with it. So there we go. Let's see if I have problems in a week. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Well, thanks again for being here, Jason. Your company is always welcome here on BDLL, and I do enjoy it. Colin OS, how are you? Last word.
Good. Yes, this I thoroughly enjoyed this exploration. It was really cool to dig into EndeavourOS a little bit, and it was good to have Brian with us again. We have chatted with him before, and really nice guy. And that was, I think, it all went really well, and he must have been happy with the feedback, I'm sure. So thanks again, Nate, Eric, and I think Steve. He's helping in the background as well, I'm pretty sure. You
No,
guys
he's
do a good job.
He just wants to slap his name on our good work. See?
So yes, thanks for the platform. It's really awesome to be here, and I'll see you guys all next week.
Thank you very much again, and we look forward to beginning of January trying out ColinOS. So it'll be good.
ColinOS.
Yep.
I better spin up a new one and rename it then.
Or PCTLC OS or whatever you want to call it. It's fine, and we will give it the full e-hug that it deserves.
Well, we'll see how the Plex goes. All right, on this thing here.
So we're going to be. Yep, I like that. I like that machine. I just like how it looks. It's a good looking machine. Plastic boxes are great. Jinda, last word.
Well, I want to thank everybody for putting up with me again as usual, and I had a blast, and I can't wait to try PCLinuxOS. It's been a very long time since I've used it.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a good trip. Like a good homecoming, I think, is what it'll be, or a good cousin coming over-ish, or whatever you want to call it. So excellent. I'm glad you came here, Jinda. I'm glad you joined us. We look forward to your being here every week, and we'll talk to you. We'll see you next week with PCLinuxOS. Steve,
Right.
I'll say last word. Make sure you plug your thing for tomorrow. Whatever it is that you do in the morning.
It's something. I mean, if I talk about it too much, Peter would definitely be there, but no.
Just don't tell him. He doesn't pay attention.
No, thanks for doing this, Nate, and picking up. Had a good time. And yeah, if you are up late, early, whatever, in the morning, in the afternoon, evening, stop by, and I'll be on.
Sometimes I feel like it's kind of like the Truman Show with you. It's like, good morning, and if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. You're kind of like that. So I do enjoy your stream in the morning. I don't get to watch the whole thing typically, but I do. 9 o'clock or 9:30, whenever it is that you start. I do try. I do enjoy harassing you in the comments. So it's lots of fun. I agree.
Always fun. Thank you.
Donnie, welcome, and I'm glad you made it back again. And last word, and whatever you want to plug.
So, thank you for doing this BDLL show. It's actually great. Glad to see everyone here. The experience with EndeavourOS was excellent, amazing. Looking forward to try PCLinuxOS, because if it wasn't this show, I probably will never try it. We'll see how it goes.
And that's why we do these. Well, I know that you're a busy guy and you can't always join us, but you're always welcome, and it's much appreciated when you are here. So thank you.
Thank you.
And as Nix, I always want to say Easy Nix, but I guess maybe I'm wrong.
Either one's fine by me.
Okay. Well.
Easy is the first two letters of my name, so
that's
fine. So, Ezra. So there aren't too many names that begin with Easy. I guess I could have been Ezekiel, but no.
You probably have a bigger beard.
I got the shorter one. Yeah, I cut it recently. It used to be, ZZ Top style.
Oh, okay. Can you spin your guitar around is the question. Can you do that? Is that...
No, I don't have one of those belts where it attaches to my guitar. So now, or whatever they used. Thank you, Nate, for having me in. It's been a long time. I lurk as usual in the comments, but with Brian being on and Endeavor, I really wanted to participate again. So, but I've been watching your BDLL, and you're doing a great job. So you're just missing the big open for business sign in the back. Yeah.
Maybe need like an open SUSE sign or something like that. Maybe SUSE sign.
Open SUSE.
Yeah.
I haven't used SUSE since 2002.
Ooh.
So I played with Leap occasionally and VMs, but on hardware, no. My first distribution was SUSE 5.3.
That's awesome.
Box set. Yep. Horrible experience, but that was my first.
Yeah. My first wasn't exactly a smooth ride either, but it wasn't with SUSE. It was with Mandrake. I chose Mandrake because it was easier than Red Hat at the time. That was before Fedora. So good times.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for being here.
Thank
Ezekiel.
you again.
I mean, easy Nix. I know.
That's fine.
So you're welcome to join anytime.
Cool.
Especially for the last BDLL of the year, next week.
Yeah, I'd love to. I don't have any plans that I know of for Saturday.
Well, pencil me in if you could, or pencil us in. It's not just me.
I will.
It's me and
It's
Steve.
always fun.
Yep.
It's always fun.
Well, you're always welcome, and thank you very much for being here. And it was nice to know, put a face to the guy that enabled Colin. I think that was good for everybody to see. So as Colin kind of loses his mind over time, we know who's the culprit, and so
Colin and I can be sort of codependent. At
Oh,
times,
okay.
So,
You're
I rely
eco-dependent.
I rely on his videos to allow me not to look at video distros I didn't want to look at anyway. So
Yeah. Well, that's excellent.
Oh, Eris made it just in time.
Yes, he made
Oh,
it.
yeah, look at that.
Yeah. Well, we're late for leaving, so that's why he came in. All right, Rick, last word and anything you want to plug.
Well, I do have a show on Wednesday evenings, and not only a screw guy, and also I'm thinking of doing like installing the OS, whatever we're gonna do for that coming Saturday, so it'll probably be PCLinuxOS this week.
Excellent.
PCLinuxOS. Yeah, so come drop by if you care to. Also, I have a question. How does this video look?
Your video is good. Your audio is a little bit on the quiet side, but that's okay because we're at the end of the show. So, so Wednesday. So not a Linux guru, I believe, is your channel name. Is that correct?
Right.
All right, excellent. So I've joined your stream a few times. Sometimes like as I'm working, that's why I'm not very talkative. But I have lurked on you a lot, and it's it's kind of a nice time. It's kind of like sitting on your couch and watching you tool away at something. So that's kind of fun. But Wednesdays, and then if you want to share or someone wants to share his channel in the chat, please do so we can other people can join in too.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Rick, for joining. I think was this your first time joining us? I can't recall.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I wish you could do like a little OBS little like confetti thing. Yay, Rick's first time. But I don't have that. Maybe someday. But thank you for being here. And Eris, it was nice to have you here for the whole show, in spirit. I don't know if you want to say anything before we close it out, or.
I'm excited to watch Biddle, which I haven't seen. I've always just participated recently, so I'm excited to watch Biddle.
Well, it was. This actually is probably one of our best ones, and it's not because you weren't here. It was just because Brian he was great. So that I would say that's why. But well, thank you, Eris. I got to tell you, thank you for all the help you've been giving me throughout the week, and it's been phenomenal, and I appreciate everything you've been doing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Scrap. I don't know if you have your mic working or if you're just kind of jumping in here right at the end. If you want to have a last and first word, you're more than welcome, or you can just play me off, Johnny.
I'll just have to say hi. I
Hello.
popped in at the end. I'm here for the after party. I
Oh,
literally
excellent.
I had to hose everything earlier in the week, and I in the last 5 minutes dropped all my audio stuff back in on Garuda to get it going, just to say hi. And it works.
Well, excellent. I'm really glad you made it, and just because it's good to see your face. So thank you, and I want to say thank you to everybody for being a part of the show. But I do want to give you there's some if you're interested, Matt from Destination Linux Network, he's doing a 24-hour game stream to raise money for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard on December 13th, so in a couple days, to December 14th. So it's a 24-hour gaming stream. There's a list of games and the whole community can participate. Some of the creators of the DLN Destination Linux Network will be there to troll Matt, like I will be, actually. So stop by and have some fun. It's there is a post on the discourse on Destination Linux Network. So destinationlinux.network. It'll be the pinned entry now. I would rattle off the whole URL, but no one's gonna have that. Also, I'm on a podcast called DLN Extend. We have a chat about tech there, and then if you want more on me, go to cubicle8.com. I have my own like a side podcast there. But I want to thank you all for joining in both the Zoom meeting and in the YouTube stream. Rocco for starting the BDLL community. Eric, once again, for the use of the Zoom account, and everybody involved in making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy our technology and put Plex on it like Colin's doing. So good, because Linux truly puts personal back into personal computers. So until next time, see yas.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
До свидания.